is March 17th, 2011, and we are interviewing Bill Buehler at the Communication Centers at Buena Vista University. Mr. Buehler was born October 26, 1928. My name is Zoey Reisdorf, and I will be interviewing along with Bill Feis.
So you're a Korean War veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Were you drafted or volunteer for the service?
Drafted,
What year were you drafted?
1951.
Which branch of the service did you serve in?
Oh, I started out in the infantry, and for a fortunate mix-up, they stuck me in the MPs over in Korea. And I worked in the motor pool.
So, what kind of training did they put you through after you were drafted? What was your training experience? Where did they send you, and what did you do?
I was in Fort Leonard Wood, and I trained heavy weapons infantry. That's why I said I was lucky I got where I did.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Do you remember anything specific from your training?
Oh, yeah. From a training?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we always, over in Korea, you set up in an area. You have a bunch of tents that you lived in. They're squad tents, usually 10, 12 men. And the MPs had their tents, and we were the motor pool, so they had to dress up, look flashy. We in the motor pool looked like mechanics. And we kept gas there, so they'd fill up with gas and oil for their vehicles. We also overhauled or repaired what we had was a whole bunch of Jeeps. Well, not a whole bunch, we had barely enough, but they were made in they're World War II Jeeps because they come out of Japan. And they weren't in very good shape. So, we fixed them up, painted them up, did all kinds of things. And it had a frame that went over the back axle, and it usually broke right in the middle. And we had a torch, a acetylene torch. And I welded a lot of those. So just keep the thing going.
Did you go? Were you in Korea for a period of time?
9 months,
9 months.
10 months, I think.
Was that 1951?
51, 52.
And you worked the motor pool there as well?
The whole time.
The whole time.
I can give you a little story on getting there if you want it.
I would love to hear it.
Well, we left the States and went by train from Fort Leonard Wood to, we caught a bus there, but anyhow, out of Kansas City, we took a troop train all the way to California, Camp Stoneman, California, by the south route. Took us 3 days. Anyway, we finally got to Camp Stoneman. Then we sat there for 2 weeks waiting for orders to leave. Well, we got our orders, and guess what? It was a United Airlines passenger plane. So we filled it full of all troops except one guy. And we flew to Japan, Tokyo. I don't know, pilot turned around and says, anybody want to sit in the co-pilot's seat? He's tired, wants to sleep. Well, I jumped at the chance. I sat in the co-pilot seat all the way to Hawaii, because Hawaii is our first stop. In those days, you had to fill up with gas then. But it was a lot of fun.
Did he let you fly the plane?
Well, no, it was on automatic pilot. They did have that then. All I could do was look out the window and see the ships going down there, because we didn't fly or flew about 10,000 feet in those days. Took us all day to get to Wake Island. And I don't know if you ever saw a map. Wake Island is just like a boomerang. This is runway, and this is runway, and there's a little spot on the edge here for buildings. There was nothing there. And we landed there, and Air Force fed us and put us on a plane and sent us on. So then we landed in Tokyo. Then we had to go camp. I forget what the name of the camp. And anyway, I spent 2 weeks processing there. And then we took a train, fast Japanese train. They were pretty good, even in those days. And we went from the North Island to the South Island, Sasebo. From Sasebo, it went to Busan. Now, Busan, we're in Korea. And we got there, and they put us on a train. I guess you could call it a train. It was the most beat-up train I ever saw. It was steam engine. The cars had been roughed up. Windows, not all the windows fit. It had a little pot-belly stove in the corner where we heat up some food. But anyhow, that took 3 days to get up to Seoul. It was only about 500 miles, but that's how long it took. we finally got to Incheon, where we ended up. That was the base for the 24th Division. When we got the division rear does all the bookwork. And I still believe there was a kid from Sac City that I knew that put me in the MPs. Can't prove it. But if he did, he did me a heck of a favor. And they saw my MOS, which was mechanic. So instead of being an MP, I ended up as a mechanic, which was great. We had a decent bunch of guys. Some of them weren't so nice, but we got along. And spent my whole tour of duty with the MPs in Korea. I can tell you a lot of stories about what we did.
Well, sure. Well, we and I think you've said quite a bit, and I think we might have some things that we want to ask you about.
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be great.
When you arrived in Korea, what did you know about the war up until that time, and how did you feel when you arrived? Were you scared? Were you excited? Was there a sense of adventure?
I wasn't scared. We knew there was a war, but I just didn't pay any attention. I just wasn't shook up about being there. And we got on this old train. Well, that was, you could tell it had been in a war because it was so bad shape. And there's little kids along begging, every time you stop. And every once in a while we'd stop because the track they had nasty people that would mess up the tracks for them. And we finally, it took us 3 days on that old train to get up to Incheon, where we went. When we got up there, they decided that we'd been sitting on our butts for a month. It's really, count them all up, it was a couple of weeks here and a couple of weeks there. And by the time we got there, we hadn't done anything at all except sit around. So they decided they're going to get us back in shape. So we set up our pup tents. It's the only time we use a pup tent. You know what a pup tent is? Well, it's 2 halves of canvas. They call them shelter halves. And you carried one, the other guy carried the other half. You put them together and pull them down like that. That's where you slept. It wasn't very big, but you could sleep in it. Well, when we got to Incheon, they didn't have any place to put us. They stuck us out in the middle of I don't know what it was, a big warehouse thing, and we slept under our, didn't even set up the tent, just slept under the canvas, and then they sent us to our unit, 24th Division. And then they put us in the, when they went, that was headquarters, and they put us in the, there was 4 of us, I think, went to the motor pool, which I was tickled to death. I hadn't seen any fighting up till then. When we got up there, though, we could hear it north of Sewell. That's when the Chinese came in. They chased them all the way back to Sewell. You could hear them shooting and firing up there. But we finally got them stopped. And they ran out of food and pushed them back. But so we'd have an area, and we'd probably be there a month or two, and then the infantry had shoved the Koreans back, and then we'd move up and establish another camp. We did that 3 times, I think.
So you were near the front.
Yeah.
Often you followed the army as it advanced.
Yeah, I tell you how we knew it was near, because we weren't far from the medical company. And we knew we were fighting because all the ambulances come roaring down. And that helicopter you see, remember in that's the name of the movie in the show? Well, we had those. And they'd come in and drop a guy off, and we knew they were fighting up front then. But then it'd quiet down and wouldn't be anything going on for maybe 2-3 weeks. Wars are funny. You never know what's going on. You sometimes wonder how we ever won a war. Just like the one that's on now.
What was your attitude towards the Chinese?
Didn't know them. They were nasty because what they did, they'd take civilians when they were trying to take a hill. They'd take civilians and run them in front, no weapons or anything. Of course, we'd shoot all them down because they thought they were the enemy, and then they'd come in over the top of them. Not very nice. So we had to shoot them. We had one incident that was after this war went on for a while. The Chinese, we actually licked the Chinese and shoved them. They came south so fast that they ran out of supplies. And motor sergeant one day he took a Jeep out and he was riding around just looking over the countryside. And this soldier waved him down. He had on a Chinese uniform. So he stopped. This guy, Buena, he was a big Hungarian from Ohio. And nobody else did what he did. I never shot the guy, but he just stopped, and the guy who didn't speak English, but he managed to get through to Buena that he was hungry, and he pointed up in the hills, and he had a whole squad of men up there that were hungry. They didn't have any food. So he lines them up and takes them down to, we had a CIA camp not far from us that interrogated prisoners. So they took them down there and turned them over to the CIA. And these guys all had guns. That damn fool, he could have got shot, but he didn't. But just stories like that, you know.
Well, what else do you remember from your time there? What sorts of other things do you think about when
Well, you ever heard of Bed Check Charlie?
No, I haven't.
It was a small airplane, and they'd fly over low, or not real low, but low enough so they'd drop a mortar shell. This harassment's what it was. And they hit a few guys out on the ground. They never hit us, but they never came over us. And then course, we'd shoot them down if we could, because they're just small, like Piper Cub airplanes, what it was. And then one time we were just out in the yard, and we heard they had Navy planes that were strafing, and they would go up and strafe and then come back over us because we were right behind the front lines. We heard this one go over and went bang, bang, the smoke come out of his engine. Uh-oh, he's hit it. The old airplane goes down, goes over the hill, and a big puff of smoke comes up. We thought, oh my. He'd parachuted out here, and this parachute coming down. So MPs had to get him back to his ship. He was off of one of the Navy ships. They probably charged him for that airplane, I don't know.
Probably. So after you were there, as it came time, did you know when you were going to leave when you got there? Did you know you'd be there 9 months or?
Yeah, they had a point system. And you had to be there so many months to earn the points. And when you got so many points, I think 4 points or something like that, then it was your turn to go back to the States.
Did you count the days? To go back?
Oh, kind of. We had R&R one time. That was, since we were an MP company, that was a little different. We had 3 GIs that killed somebody, killed some civilians. And they had been arrested. And they had to take them back to Japan, put them in the prison back there. Well, since motor pool MPs, we had to take them back. So we put them out on a fence and stood over them with rifles until got time to go, and we got in a plane where they hauled, didn't haul prisoners, they hauled wounded. But we stuck these prisoners, once they're on the air, they couldn't do anything anyway. Once we got them back to Japan, I sure wouldn't want to be one of them. They weren't treated very well.
What do you remember about the weather over in Korea?
You live in Iowa? Same weather. Colder than the devil in the wintertime, hot in the summer. It really was. It was almost identical. Only we had mountains there. Not very big ones, but valleys. And when we moved someplace, we'd move into these valleys. And it was kind of nasty. That's kind of bad. They'd take a big bulldozer and level off all the rice paddies so it was level. So those poor people would have to rebuild them to raise rice again. We were owned that country. When I got there, it was just like landing in the moon. You know, everything shot up, and trees were shot up. It wasn't a nice place at all.
Did you have much contact with South Koreans?
Yeah.
What did you think
That's another story. We hired an MP company. I hired quite a few of them. A couple of them in the kitchen, and one of them gave haircuts. And see, the MPs had to look nice. So then we had 2 mechanics in the motor pool, and the one guy, he was a lazy ass. Conniver, get away with anything he could. I spoke a little English. That's how he got around. But anyway, the other one was Lee Chung-young, and he was a great guy and a heck of a good mechanic. He and I got along just real fine. I knew those 2 guys. So that's how my Koreans I knew.
You'd mentioned that the country was really shot up. Were there places you went, and did you notice, being from Iowa, did you look at the land, and did you think about how it compared to Iowa?
Well, it really didn't compare because there'd be mountains and valleys where we were. And they had crops and stuff in the valleys, but not very big fields, you know. But they had enough to live on. And of course we shot it all up. It was a mess. And actually it was kind of, those mountains ended just about at 38th parallel, and that's where the fighting ended. And south of that it was fairly level. It was, we never got into any fights, although they tried to scare us one time because they said they were shooting artillery, so we had to bury our tent. Do you ever bury a squad tent? Well, Buena, the guy from Ohio, was pretty sharp. He got a bunch of Koreans and gave them our sea rations that nobody wanted anyway. You know, the candies, and they had them dig that hole. It didn't take them long, about 4 foot deep. And so we lived in that for a couple of months. Well, we were still in it when I left.
How did you guys entertain yourself while you were?
Well, we had Clark Gable come and see us. Oh, that's kind of a story too. Our MP company was supposed to transport one of the girls up to where they had their show. And this guy, his name was Ronnie Pearson, but we called him Mabel. He was a character. He was also an alcoholic, but he was funny. And so we designated him to drive the girl up to the front. And he got back, well, how'd it go? Well, she invited me in, but I didn't go. You son of a... We called him about every name in the book. But we did. That was, entertainment from the, what they call themselves? I can't even remember now.
Was it the USO?
Yeah, it was the USO.
Did you get to see Clark Gable? Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, we went up and see, Mabel had to stay with this girl.
Poor guy.
Yeah, he got so drunk one night, this is in the middle of the winter, and he rolled off his we were on, just, you've seen the beds and the fold up beds. Well, he was laying next to the outside of the tent. He rolled off that thing and landed in the snowbank outside in his sleeping bag. So we just left him out there. Figured he'd wake up sometime. Oh, I did get in a little trouble, and whether it'd be interest or not.
Oh, why don't you tell us about that?
We had a RA guy. In other words, that was regular Army. He was an alcoholic and a mean son of a gun. No sense whatsoever. And we were playing poker one night. You know me, I was new in the game and won all the money. Oh, he got really upset. And he stuck a 45 in my belly. He wanted his money back. Well, any problem, I give his money back. But the rest of the guys talked him out of shooting me. That's close I come to getting shot.
That's close enough.
Yeah.
When you got close to going home, how did that feel when you got the when you knew you had enough points and
Real good, except the only thing wrong with it was in February, the latter part of February, and the weather was like it was here, colder than the devil, and we got in a semi truck. You know, it's like a stock truck here. Anyway, and that's what we went down to the airfield that was at what was it, Kimpo Airfield. Anyway, went down there to get the plane to go home. No, we didn't either. I got that wrong. We went to Incheon, and we had to get on a ship to go home because we had the bay there was so shallow, ships couldn't get in. Oh, they'd be a couple miles out. You had to get in a barge, go out the ship, and then get on the ship. That happened to be a Navy ship. And everything went fine there. Only when we were in that truck going south to give it to this port where the ship would be, which was Incheon, and they were still fighting up there up north. And this plane come whizzing down and right at us, and I thought, oh boy, we've had it. It was one of ours. Fortunately, he recognized us before he let go. That's about as scared as I got.
So then what happened after you went home?
Well, it was true about the Korean vets. Nobody cared. Nobody paid any attention to it. The only good thing, a lot of guys got free college. You know, the government would send you to college.
why do you think that was that Korean War veterans got forgotten? I know the Korean War itself is called the Forgotten War. Why do you think that is?
Well, just got over the Second World War, and they were tired of war, I guess. And we were a little different because we were drafted. Now, this last war, I think most of them were National Guard guys they sent over there, which I thought the National Guard is supposed to protect us here, not. But that's the way it was. Most of the guys that were there when we got there were RAs. In other words, they were in the 24th Division. 24th was a Hawaiian division, and that was their headquarters, Hawaii. And they were the first ones they sent into Korea. And when they got there, I wasn't in on this, but they almost lost the war. Because the Koreans came at them and they didn't have nothing to stop them with. But they finally got enough stuff to stop them, but it was right on the outskirts of Busan, I guess, and that's the city that's the port city on the bottom end of Korea. So that was a close one. But they finally got enough stuff to. I think probably they did it with air power because we had air power.
What was your reaction to the armistice agreement?
Oh, to that? Didn't amount to anything. We still have how many troops over there? 1,000? More than that.
41,000.
Yeah, they're sitting there doing nothing. That gets awful boring.
What
But
did
you
you,
train.
oh, no, go ahead.
Well, that's all they did was train.
Did you write to anybody while you were in the service? Did you? I thought that might be the case.
That was my mistake. She's checking on me. So, see, I'm not going to say anything. Our letters were, well, I'll tell you, my letters were of the type that she threw them all away.
Could you write anything? Would the military let you write anything? Would they try to censor the mail to make sure that?
No, they didn't censor it at all. Write anything you wanted. In fact, our motor pool, we had a girl in, I think she was in Cleveland or someplace. She was a dancer. So we got her name on it. It was in Stars and Stripes. So we started writing, and this Oana, the character he was, we started writing to her. And we just couldn't wait till we got her letter back. Pretty saucy.
You have some very good stories.
Well, I don't know. Don't have too many more.
When you, and I'm gonna back up just a little bit just for
Yeah.
the last.
Go ahead.
When you started, and I have to give credit. This is a question actually that Zoey had. When the Korean War started, and before you were drafted, what did you think about when the war started? Did you think it might be another World War that was going to happen, or how did you feel about it when it started?
I think we pretty much knew that it was just, I suppose, it was Truman's police action. Don't you remember? You remember that? It was supposed to just go over there and shoot the hell out of them and come home. Didn't work out that way. None of our wars have since.
You're right about that.
But that's what everybody thought. Of course, the 24th Division got sent in there and got the help. Well, the 19th, divisions are divided into regiments. The 19th Regiment was almost annihilated in that first go-around. And they did kill a lot of men in that war. Almost as many as the World War II. And it only lasted 2 years. And it's amazing to me. This war we're in now, we've been in it 7 years. And it's a totally different war. They hide in holes, and in the Korean War, where you had 2 lines and they attack each other and lose a few men and maybe take a hill or some damn thing, and that'd be it. In fact, we got up to almost North Korea and the Chinese border before the Chinese came in and kicked our ass. They really did. I talked to a tank driver that drove all day and all night, froze his feet. He was in. We were going over to Korea, and he was in the ship going back. It was very nasty for those fellows. Lost a lot of men on that.
Did you ever think that there wasn't going to be an end to the war, or that we weren't going to win?
Well, when they had their talks, the they kept doing it, and you just knew that nothing had ever come. You'd hope it did, but it didn't. MacArthur, that's when MacArthur, do you remember, you guys don't remember that probably. MacArthur wanted to go into China. He was going to take on China with an atomic bomb or something. Harry Truman fired him. That's when a captain, Harry was a captain in the army, and MacArthur's a general. The captain fired the general.
How did you feel about that when you heard that Truman had fired MacArthur? What was your feeling on that?
Of course, we hardly ever knew, got really news what was going on. But we thought it all right, I think, because we knew MacArthur was gung-ho. And he's going to do anything to make MacArthur look good. We didn't like guys like that.
Well, we have one more question for you, and it's just kind of a general question. What are you most proud of with your service in the Korean War? What do you think of that gives you the most pride when you think about your service?
Well, we managed to stop the North Koreans and let the South Koreans go back to what they were doing. And their cities, Seoul, it was kind of bad shape. But they've rebuilt, and their economy is so much better than North Korea, you can't believe it. Maybe MacArthur's right. But then you get in a fight with China, and that would have been good. Because I was told one time if you shot the Chinese one at a time, and as they went in the sea, they'd never end. So didn't need anything like that.